The alert lands as I'm rinsing coffee grounds from the French press, a neat little banner across my phone that steals the rest of the morning's breath. Hawthorne Grange events, 18,250 pounds, approved. Water keeps running over my hand because my body forgets how to turn taps and move fingers at the same time. The kitchen window is a rectangle of gray London morning, and my mug sits ready, and none of it makes sense next to that number. My name, Linnea Harrow, is attached to a wedding venue in the Cotswolds I have never booked. I shut off the tap. The silence releases the whir of my fridge and the soft hum of the city's weekday machinery, the kind of noise that says everything is ordinary. The notification glows like a wrong note. I unlock the phone with the clinical detachment that comes from working in compliance. I spend my days at Rook and Bell verifying stranger things. Sham addresses where no one lives, directors who retire from 3 companies in 1 hour, bank accounts that change hands more times than a pound coin in December. The detachment saves me now. I tap into my card settings, thumb hovering over freeze. My brain measures the distance between me and ruin. I freeze the card. I call the bank. "Security, this is Marcus," says a voice that sounds like he's wearing a gray jumper. I give him the alert and my breath and the words for not me. He pulls the thread. "Merchant, Hawthorne Grange events? Card present? No. Details on file from previous transaction months ago." I close my eyes. What transaction? A small deposit, 250 pounds. Merchant descriptor identical, same device fingerprint. I stand very still, the way you do when a flock of memories takes off. 6 months ago, we all went to view country houses for my sister's wedding. Tamsin had dragged me to Hawthorne Grange on a drizzly Saturday because Cotswold stone photography's like gold. I remember her coat a shade of almond milk and the way she said sister like a fixed point. We tasted canapes that tasted of nothing and walked rooms that smelled of beeswax and wood smoke. I held her clutch while she took mirror photos of herself in an ornate robe and said she'd die if she didn't have this place. She hugged me when we left. "You're my favorite human." She had my wallet. I opened my eyes. "I didn't authorize any deposit." He breathes like he's glancing at policy. If a merchant has stored credentials legitimately, they can charge within agreed terms. Disputes go to our card services. I can cancel this card and overnight a new one. "Cancel it." My voice turns metal. "Put a note on the account. I'm filing a fraud report." He reads me the reference number. I write it on the back of an unpaid council tax bill because that's what's closest, and I hate how domestic and small the paper feels under something that tastes like betrayal. When I hang up, the kettle has forgotten how to be relevant. I leave it cold. My thumbs already know the other place to go, action fraud. I fill in the online form with everything that has been me for 28 years. National insurance number, address, a description of my sister in a coat that made my mother say she looked like money. I press submit. A case reference number appears. I open another tab, CIFAS Protective Registration. My fingers move in an old practice rhythm. This is what I do for clients and strangers, protection flags, notices of correction. I add one to my credit file stating that no new credit should be opened in my name without my explicit confirmation by phone. My phone vibrates again. A new, smaller notification this time. Credit search, Bramble and Vale, bridal finance. I don't feel my heart drop. I hear it. The name is a boutique chain that finances dresses. I did not apply for a dress. I call them. The woman on the other end is soft. "We have an application for a BNV account. Name, Linnea Harrow. Address, your flat. Email, a Gmail that is almost mine except for an extra I. Mobile, mine." How is it verified? Online application, selfie match to driving license. My driving license? Yes. A particular kind of cold moves down my arms. Tamsin has posted photos my whole life. We have the same eyes and different moods. She knows the way my face finds cameras. She's held my license to book us things since we were both too young to book ourselves anything. If she held it long enough, she could have captured the numbers. If she needed more, she's had access to the bin where I once tossed an expired card. It doesn't matter how. The shape of the thing is the same. I didn't authorize any deposit. Marcus breathes like he's glancing at policy. Please cancel the application and note the account with the action fraud reference number. We can do that if you email the report. I will. I hang up and open the family group chat. Photos of swatches and centerpieces scroll backwards through time like confetti accumulating in the wrong direction. I type, Linnea, who authorized Hawthorne Grange Events to charge my credit card for £18,000? I watch the typing bubble form and vanish. Mom, sweetheart, this isn't the time. We're sorting final details today. Can we not do money now? Linnea, they charged my card. My. That's fraud. Tamsin, OMG, calm down. It's just the balance. We'll settle up after the honeymoon. You know I'm good for it. Don't ruin the vibe. I stare at vibe like it's a word from an alien alphabet. Linnea, you used my identity. Typing. Tamsin, family share, babe. You said you wanted to help. I hadn't said that. I'd said I would design her seating chart because there was something soothing about names aligning in pairs. That was the extent of my help. Linnea, remove my details from the venue, today. She sends a single emoji. Thumbs up. My phone rings. Mom. I answer because I can hear her heartbeat behind this call like a moth. Linny, your sister's wedding is in 9 days. She's in pieces already about the overnight deliveries. Oliver's parents are scrutinizing everything. If you pull some thread right now, the whole thing will fall apart. Mom, she stole my card. She borrowed it. That's not how borrowing works. Borrowing requires asking. She meant to ask. The kettle suddenly matters. I switch it on simply to give myself an object to hold onto in a world where words are being bent to fit somebody's dream. Steam unfurls. I'm not fighting you. I'm telling you what will happen. I'm going to the venue today. I'm going to request copies of any contracts with my name on them and have the charges reversed. Don't embarrass her. Mom's voice goes small. Your father would say, she stops. None of us say what my father would say anymore because we have spent 3 years turning the volume down on that voice. This isn't about embarrassment. It's about my credit, my future, the flat I want to buy in 6 months. If I look up and there's a CCJ with my name on it because the flowers ran to triple after midnight and someone meant to ask me, I'll have to start over. I hang up to prevent the part where I cry. I do not cry. I put on a navy dress that doesn't crease and boots that know country mub, and I go to Paddington Station with a notebook, my action fraud reference number, and a resolve that feels brand new and very old. The Cotswold Lane holds all its usual pastoral theater against the window. Sheep like punctuation and scribbles of green, stone walls going nowhere in straight lines, little stations with names that sound like baked goods. I use the hour to draft a list like any risk officer would. 1. Who authorized? 2. Which documents? 3. How to reverse or mitigate? 4. How to avoid court? And 5. How to minimize damage to the wedding day. Because I still love my sister, even when her choices want to take my skin. A white cab waits outside Morton and Marsh. The driver doesn't chat. The road to Hawthorne Grange is the kind that makes you think you're entering an old story. The house appears like a promise kept too late. Honeystone, climbing wisteria, mullioned windows blinked clean. The manager's name is Rory. He has a clipboard and an apologetic smile that says he was born to tell people their dream package doesn't include sparklers of that caliber. He says, Ms. Harrow? He takes me to an office that used to be a pantry. Files are stacked like small cities. He opens a drawer, finds a folder, and slides across a copy of an e-sign contract. My name appears in a font I use for presentations. The signature is my name written by someone who has watched me sign Christmas cards for decades and mimic the flourish with a confidence that makes me feel sick.
I didn't sign this, I say. I can see the signature was done via a link sent to your verified email address, he says in the tone of someone who has been told to say this very sentence more than once. We have a copy of the email thread. He shows me an address that is mine with an extra I again. I point, that's not my email. He nods. But the deposit was paid with your card ending in 1407. He reads the numbers like a quiet indictment. I didn't authorize the deposit either. I'm filing a fraud case. I place the action fraud reference on his clipboard like a talisman. Rory looks at it with the resignation of a man who has seen love weaponize admin. I sympathize, he says. But the balance has been charged. We are within our rights. The wedding is in 9 days. Canceling now would be catastrophic for the couple. The couple will be fine, I say, although I'm not sure what fine means in this context and whether it includes me. What happens if the card dispute reverses the charge? Rory's apology deepens into a crease. We would pursue the contractual signatory. You. I'm not the signatory. I breathe in beeswax and old lemon oil. You've been defrauded as well. I can prove it. A woman knocks softly at the open door. She is mid-50s, with a face made for kindness and very capable sums. Rory, the roofing quote? Sorry. She sees me. Hello. Miss Harrow, Rory says. This is Miss Harrow, the bride's sister. Her mouth makes a polite shape. Lovely. We're looking forward to next Saturday. I'm here about the charges and the contract in my name I did not sign. I expect bristling. What I receive is a sigh. Shall we have tea? She says, as if kindness could be spread like jam across this whole mess. We have tea at a little table overlooking the back lawn where a rectangle of parquet is laid under a tent, already waiting for dancing feet I do not want to think about. I am sorry for your trouble, she says. I truly am. The deposit was paid 6 months ago with a card in your name. The balance was charged per terms. We retain counsel to handle disputes. But 9 days is no time at all in venue world. Her fingers worry the sugar bowl lid. We need this wedding to happen. Because you need the money? I say, not unkindly. I have already looked around and seen the things that cost more than they earn. Staff polished too thin, gardens that have to justify themselves. She meets my eyes. Because we have 3 contractors pressing for payment and a roof leak you cannot see because the weather has been merciful. We are between loans. My husband managed the accounts. There is a past tense in her throat that says more than she intends. I'm sorry, I say, and mean it. Look, if I can show you that the signatory email is fraudulent and that the deposit and balance came from a stolen card, would you agree that you've been misled as well? Would you agree we should pause any collection against me while we sort the rightful payer? She nods slowly. I can ask our solicitor. He has opinions about everything. He likes to make them sound like legal doctrine, even when they are not. Her mouth lifts. Rory will send whatever you request, but between you and me, I cannot afford to lose this wedding. I'm not here to ruin it, I say. The words surprise me as I hear them. I'm a risk analyst. I shut things down. But my poorly behaving sister's face appears with the almond coat and the word die, and the terrible thing is, I don't want to ruin anything. I want my life back. I want to stand aside and let her have her perfect rectangle of parquet without it costing me the future I've built quietly like a bricklayer with a good eye. Then help me, Miss Wren says. And in those 3 words, a door opens I did not expect. Help me keep this house alive next week.
Help me not to collapse under solicitors who will charge me for the time they spend telling me I'm already dead. Help me make straight what has been crooked. I listen to the house breathe. The boards are old. The silence is older. In it, I hear a choice. I might be able to do more than help for a week, I say. She tilts her head. What does a compliance officer in London plan to do with a leaky roof in the Cotswolds? Read company's house filings and call people who are tired of watching this place limp. Who holds your debt? Her eyes flick to Rory. Woodford Leisure Holdings, Rory answers. A debenture over all present and future assets. We report quarterly. We have breached 2 covenants. They know. They also know the wedding schedule for the next 6 months. We are not far gone enough to be written off. We are not close enough to be loved. I nod. May I see the charge instrument? Rory looks to Miss Wren. She nods. It's public, but yes. He prints the page from company's house with the charge number and the names. The paper feels like a map. I know these landscapes. I know what happens when a holder of a floating charge watches a borrower knock along the bottom. If you buy the charge, you buy a kind of power. If you buy the debt, the equity begins to listen to your weather reports. I can't promise anything, but I might be able to call Woodford and ask what price they'd accept to assign the debt. If I can buy them out, I could offer you a forbearance for the season in exchange for equity. Clean your arrears, keep your staff, fix your roof, keep this wedding, and tidy my own problem within lawful bounds. You're proposing to buy my debt, she says like she's tasting a new spice. With what, dear? My savings, and I say, and my stomach goes cold because I have been saving for a flat for 3 years, and I am pushing the pile across a table in my mind. And a bridge loan from my employer, if they will consider it, secured by the very debt I purchase. Miss Wren studies me like I am a flower she has not seen in this garden before. What would you want from me? Access? Your ledgers? Your contracts? Your last 6 months of correspondence with Woodford? And trust for a fortnight. She laughs once, a sound made of disbelief and relief. If you can keep the bailiffs out and the tents up, you have my trust for 2. I leave with a folder that is more like a pulse. On the platform in Morton and Marsh, I build emails the way some people build card houses. One to Hugo at Woodford Leisure Holdings, found after 2 phone menus and 1 receptionist who told me he only answers calls on the quarter hour. One to my boss, Slate, whose name is something he had to grow into. Subject: unusual bridge question. Confidential. One to Etta Salcido, a solicitor whose friendship I bought with late-night takeaway during her exams and have kept with honest favors ever since. On the train, I read Hawthorne Grange's ledgers. Cash flow like a wheezing accordion, accounts payable like bees around a jar. And yet, bookings into next summer, that glint. This place is not a dead thing. It is a poor communicator with good features. By the time I switch to the tube at Paddington, I have 3 replies. Hugo, from Woodford. We can discuss. Our internal valuation is X. He names a number that staggers me, but numbers that like faces. You learn which parts to watch and which to ignore. Internal valuations are built to be argued. Slate. Walk me through it. In person, 4 p.m. Slate is a man who could disassemble your plan with a glance and put it back together better without admitting you were the one who brought him the pieces. Etta. Come by Chambers at 6. Don't sign anything without me. And don't let anyone make you the villain of your sister's day. You will hate yourself later. At 4 p.m., I slide my plan across Slate's table. His office looks over Fitzrovia like it could own it if it wanted to. He wears a suit the color of maths. He asks, why? He never asks what. He can see the what before you sit down. He asks the question that undresses motive. Because my sister used my credit and identity to finance her wedding. Because the venue is in distress, but viable. Because Woodford will take 50 to 60 pounds on the pound if I can move this week. Because if I own the secured debt, I can direct how and when the venue pursues payment for this wedding and remove my name from liability without burning the place down. And what do you want from me? A bridge. 200 grand. Secured by the assigned debt and personal guarantee. Types: 6-month term, 10%, interest only. Unit economics? He flips to my forecast like a priest to the right psalm. Booking sustain. I restructure supplier contracts, negotiate energy rates, install metered usage for the kitchens, add weekday elopement packages. We keep the staff. We fix the roof. We get through winter.
He looks at me for a long time. You are not a mad person, Linnea. Thank you. You are also not a hospitality operator. I will hire one. And your sister? She will have her wedding. She will not have my future. His mouth tightens, which for Slate is almost a smile. I'll back you if Etta signs off the documents and Whitford assigns cleanly. We'll use an SPV to hold the debt. Rook and Bell will administer the bridge, but you will not involve our name in any family drama. You will behave like a grown person who understands consequences. I do. Then go sign what you need to sign. At 6, Etta highlights sections in fluorescent green that mean, do not miss this. You're buying more than a problem, she says, combing through the Whitford assignment draft. You're buying a lever. Use it to lift carefully. Will it work? If Whitford did their paperwork and Ms. Wren signs the equity forbearance swap, yes, you will be the loudest voice in the room without having to shout. You will also need to notify them of default if you plan to restructure on paper. Then you have to offer the cure. If she takes it, she's yours in the tenderest legal sense. I send Hugo my counteroffer before I brush my teeth. 52 pence on the pound, close within 3 business days. No recourse beyond the assets, assignment of all enforcement rights. He replies at 11:13 p.m., as if he was waiting for the chance to appear nonchalant. 56, and you can have it tomorrow. I think of my flat deposit and what it means to push an entire life back 6 months for a house of other people's love. Done, I type. I sleep because my body demands it, not because my mind permits it. Morning arrives like a decision. I send £112,000 to Whitford Leisure's solicitor's escrow at 9:07 a.m., and my hand shakes. My bank app looks at me like it will tell stories about this day forever. Funds leave. Etta texts, I have their assignment, signing at noon. I call Ms. Wren as I walk to work. She answers on the second ring. I have your debt, I say. The sentence makes me feel like a god I do not believe in. She laughs a wet, astonished laugh. You cannot be serious. I am. I'm drafting a forbearance that gives you 6 months in exchange for 35% equity and a seat on your board. You keep operational control day to day. We tidy the arrears. We pay suppliers by an agreed schedule. We ring-fence the weddings. In exchange, you stop bleeding by 1,000 polite cuts and agree that for the current wedding, you will treat any charges in my name as disputed, escalate to fraud investigation, and refrain from collection against me. Silence, in which I hear a leaf scrape a window. I never expected my salvation to arrive in boots, she says. Send me the paper. I do. Etta threads the needle between kindness and steel. At noon, I stand in a small conference room and sign my name where it will mean something new. Whitford assigns the charge to my SPV, Briar Ledger Ltd., whose sole director is me and whose registered office is a tiny room above Etta's chambers. Paper makes power, and I hate that and also am grateful. In the afternoon, I call Slate to confirm the bridge, and he releases the funds with the carefulness of a man who has seen too many careful plans turn clownish at the end. The money goes into Briar Ledger's account, and I wire the first tranche to Hawthorne Grange's list of creditors. The florist cries when I tell her she will be paid within 7 days.
The lighting company sends me a thumbs up emoji, which I forward to Ms. Wren for morale. At 5 p.m., my sister calls. She doesn't say hello. What are you doing? Which part? I ask. I can hear traffic her side. Maybe Knightsbridge, the specific horn of a car that costs more than our mother's house. Rory said you turned up. He said you made problems where there were no problems. There were problems. They were wearing my name. You were always going to fix it. You were always going to fix it after I paid for it. She inhales sharply. You are being cruel. I'm being precise. Oliver's parents are already watching every line item like hawks. If you make noise like this, they'll think I'm cheap or chaotic. They will think you stole. The word lands with the sound of the thing itself hitting the floor. She goes quiet, then uses the voice she learned when she got her first internship and wanted to sound like a woman who knows where the exits are. Listen to me. If you hurt this for me, I will never forgive you. If you hurt my chances at a mortgage, I will never forgive you. And it is not a threat. It is the inverse of an embrace. She hangs up. I look at the reflection of my face in my black phone screen. We have the same eyes in different moods. At 5, Etta sends me the executed forbearance and equity swap. I sign, Ms. Wren signs, and the registrar at Company's House receives 2 documents, a memorandum of satisfaction from Whitford Leisure and a new charge in favor of Briar Ledger Ltd., and a Form SH-01 recording the allotment of shares to me. I sit on my bed and watch legal emails do the thing they do when they have grown their wings. I know what I have done is absurd. I also know it is sound. It is not a grand romantic gesture. It is a series of enforceable contracts that give breathing space to a house and me. The next morning, I take the 725 to Morton and Marsh again. My boots know the gravel now. Rory greets me like a man who doesn't know whether to pour champagne or dig a bunker. Ms. Wren has a pen behind her ear and gratitude in her pockets. We spend the day doing the work of triage. I sit with the accounts in the pantry office and send payments to 3 suppliers who had begun writing emails with subject lines like final, final. I write a letter to the energy company offering a payment plan. I call the roofing contractor and tell him he will be paid in 2 parts across the next fortnight. He agrees because he's watched this house host half his cousin's weddings, and he does not want to be the one who puts a bucket under someone's vows. At lunch, I stand outside, looking at the beech trees while eating a sandwich Rory swears is famous in the Titchin hierarchy. Tamsin pulls up in a white car that looks like a thesis on taste. She gets out with sunglasses and a face like punctuation. Oliver follows. Less punctuation, more parentheses, always enclosing things, drawing them toward him. "What have you done?" Tamsin says before she is within courteous distance. "Saved your wedding," I say. It is petty to say it like that, and I do not care. Oliver studies me like I'm a contract he's been told not to sign. You cannot interfere in our private event. When your private event is secured by my public debt, I can. And while we're here, do not use my name on any vendor contracts, applications, or accounts. Remove any trace. Today. We already did. Tamsin lies with the confidence of a woman holding a bouquet in a mirror she mistakes for truth. Good, I say. Because if another charge hits my card from any vendor on this wedding, I will pursue criminal action. Not a threat, a schedule. Criminal? Tamsin laughs. You wouldn't. You already did. And I wait a second to let it sink in, because there is no joy in being clever when the cost is blood. Oliver adjusts his cuff in a way that would look like elegance to anyone who hasn't worked in compliance. To me, it looks like someone considering loss control. There's no need to escalate. We can settle. A family matter. His eyes are the exact shade of a balance sheet that hides a contingency off to the side. I'm de-escalating. I'm taking my name off the instruments of your party. I've also rearranged this venue's liabilities so they don't have to chase me to cover your masquerade. Masquerade? Wedding. Forgive me. I speak in terms. Is that why the florist emailed to say she was so grateful to our family? Because you want to play the savior. I want to play the person whose credit score still exists in a month. Everything else is a side effect.
He takes Tamsin's arm. Come on, we have a tasting. To me, he adds with the coolness of someone who aligns himself with gravity. Stay in your lane, Linnea. After they go inside, I stand with the beech trees and let the wind lengthen my spine. When I walk back in, Rory hands me a stack of invoices. These are the current ones, he says, and this is odd. We received an email from the bride's fiance's office, from his company's accounting team. They asked for copies of all pro forma invoices addressed to Linnea Harrow. I swallow. Did you send them? No. I wanted to check with you first. Forward it to me. He does. The email is from accounts@braithwaitepartners.co.uk, Oliver's family business. The signature block is tidy. They want, in any documentation evidencing charges in the name of Miss Linnea Harrow in relation to the event for Miss Tamsin Harrow and Mr. Oliver Braithwaite for reconciliation purposes. Reconciliation, a word I have used in 2 registers and loved only in 1. I forward it to Etta with a single line. Is this smart or stupid? She replies, both. If they're trying to bury evidence, they're too late. If they're trying to reimburse, make them put it in writing with an admission of liability. At 5, Miss Wen gathers staff in the barn where the fairy lights will make everyone more beautiful next week. She says, this is Linnea. She has done something outrageous and necessary. We will all be kind to her. We will also all do our jobs. We will keep this place upright and welcoming, and we will not let the roof fall in. The staff clap in that British way where enthusiasm is moderated by a genetic fear of being too much. I say hello to the chef, to the head gardener, to the teenage servers who are saving for university, or for a car they will call something like Bess. On the train back to London, I open a new note on my phone and title it Accounting. I write a list of documents I will send to accounting when I own not only the debt but the venue, photos, signed seating chart, invoices, timestamps, the exact moment the first song will play, the ledger entries that will turn myth into math. Not to hurt, to make a record, to tether a thing that could drift into the fog of family stories and land forever as the year Linnea overreacted. 2 days before the wedding, everything accelerates in the way a spinning plate accelerates just before you catch it or it breaks. At 8:03 a.m., the bank fraud team calls with an update. We've issued a provisional credit for the Hawthorne Grange charge, the woman says. We're contacting the merchant. I will be contacting me. I am the merchant's lender. There is a pause in which I hear her adjust her script. We will contact the merchant per procedure. Understood. I hang up and email Rory to expect correspondence and to escalate it to me as Briar Ledger. I can hold both roles without conflict because I am careful. I document, I draw lines on maps and keep them. At 11:20 a.m., a courier arrives with a letter, a formal notice from Oliver's solicitor alleging harassment and interference with contractual relations. It is carefully worded and utterly uninteresting. Etta replies with a letter that is interesting. Our client has acquired the secured obligations of Hawthorne Grange, which give her certain rights and obligations. She has interfered with nothing but criminally suspect transactions in her name. At 1:32, Hugo emails to say, pleasure doing business. Hope we do not meet under these circumstances again. At 4:10, Slate calls with one question that is not a question. You're aligned. Yes. Then finish well. The day before the wedding, I'm back at Hawthorne Grange with a clipboard that has become something like a spine for me. Miss Wen and I walk the grounds and talk through the running order. The roof has stopped pretending to hold grudges and holds water instead. The staff have a rhythm. Rory's eyes are both terrified and joyful, a combination I trust. I'm in the pantry office when Tamsin appears in the doorway. She doesn't knock. Her face is thinner than last week, which is what stress will do even to beautiful people with expensive hair. She says, I need your help. I steel myself for some manipulation and am not prepared for the shape of the ask. Oliver's father asked accounting to pull every invoice with your name because he thought it would be funny to prove you did this for me. They sent them to him with a little note about final responsibility. He's furious. At me, at my mother-in-law, at Oliver. He says this is a disgrace. He told me that if we don't make it right before tonight, I shouldn't walk down the aisle tomorrow. I sit still because everything in me wants to be cruel, and because I know I cannot do what I have done for 2 days and then go and be unkind now. I ask, "How much can you pay?" She whispers, 3,000. I say, "It's not enough." Will you? She can't finish the sentence. No, I say gently. I will not pay for your wedding, but I will allow Hawthorne Grange to reissue the invoices in your and Oliver's names with a payment plan that spans 12 months at commercial terms, provided you sign an admission of liability and a personal guarantee. That will make Oliver's father angrier, and it will make you honest. She covers her face with her hands, and for a moment I am looking at my sister at 7 years old, who had taken a sugar cube from a restaurant and cried because she thought she had stolen the chandelier. She says, "I don't know how to tell him." You will tell him because you want to get married, and because you don't want to start your marriage with a lie attached to my aim. She nods and breathes through her mouth like a runner. Okay. Draft it. We draft it. Etta polishes it in 20 minutes. Tamsin signs with a hand that shakes. Oliver signs with a pen that looks heavy for the ink it lays down. Rory countersigns as agent for the venue, and I watch the lines that have been drawn between us become visible in ink. It would be easier to hate them and leave it at that. It is harder to love and still ask for payment. Night comes, and with it 100 small panics that belong to any wedding. A seam unthreads, a delivery goes to the wrong gate, a ring bearer refuses the concept of trousers. At 10 p.m., I send an email to accounts@hawthornegrangeltd.co.uk, the address I set up this afternoon that forwards to Rory and to me. Subject, event documentation, Harrow, Braithwaite. I attach photos of the venue setup, copies of invoices, the signed liability admission, and the current balance schedule. I am not vindictive, I am thorough. The email's second recipient is accounting@Braithwaite Partners, the address that chased the invoices. For your reconciliation, I write, please note, charges previously issued to the card ending 1407 have been credited back to the issuing bank, pending fraud investigation. All current obligations lie with the signatories named. I sleep for 3 hours and wake before the sun. It is the morning of the wedding. I put on a navy dress that is neither festive nor somber. It is a dress you wear when you need to be believed. At Hawthorne Grange, the sky is a soft white that makes every photo better. The florist's van exhales flowers, the kitchen smells like rosemary and butter. Miss Wen hugs me without making a noise. Rory looks like he might learn to levitate. At 9:02, a black Mercedes arrives on the gravel with the square confidence of wealth. Oliver's father steps out in a suit that cost the same as a second-hand car. He is not talking loudly, but everything about his walk is a statement. Behind him, a second car doors open on Oliver and Tamsin, both beautiful, both pale.
Ms. Harrow, says Oliver's father without preamble, I have your correspondence. We will not sign a payment plan. We will not accept that my son and his bride are liable for charges placed on another's card. You already signed, I say, and I keep my voice mild. Yesterday afternoon. I have countersigned copies. He blinks because he has not been surprised often since he learned to drive a Jaguar. Those signatures were coerced. They were read, I say, and understood, and witnessed. We will be seeing you in court. You will be seeing me in 2 places, I say. In court is one. The other is on the board of this venue. He looks up at the house for the first time, like it has failed to introduce itself correctly. Excuse me? I bought the debt that keeps these doors open, I say. I am the lender. I am also a shareholder now.
and I will not permit collections against my name for your event." His mouth presses into a line that probably made men throw themselves out of his way for 30 years. "You are ridiculous." "I am documented," I say. He takes a step closer to me that would read as threatening if I had not spent 3 days making actual threats irrelevant. "This farce will end today." "Today there is a wedding," I say. "You love your son. Don't teach him that the way to fix a mess is to stand on a woman until she goes quiet." He looks at Oliver, and something happens with his eyes that is private and terrible. Then he turns and walks toward the house like a man who expects ceilings to lower in obedience. Tamsin stops in front of me. "Thank you," she says, so quietly I could decide I misheard. Then she goes inside. At 10:17, Etta texts me, "Heads up, Oliver's solicitor filed for an emergency injunction to stop you from interfering today. Remote hearing at 11. Judge says he'll decide whether to grant pending fuller review." I look at the clock. The ceremony is scheduled for 1. There is an hour and 43 minutes between me and a decision that could dump politics into my sister's vows. Rory sets up a laptop in the pantry office. Ms. Wren brings me tea like armor. At 11 on the dot, the video call clicks to life with the digital cough of the court. A judge appears in a box flanked by 2 expressions that belong to lawyers who bill in 6-minute increments. Opposing counsel speaks first, with the measured outrage of a man who was about to mispronounce my name. He says it anyway, and I correct him once, because some things you don't let pass. He argues that I have exerted undue influence, that I have commandeered a venue for personal vendetta, that I have threatened their clients with embarrassment on their wedding day. Etta speaks like clarity poured over stones. She lays out the facts, the identity theft, the assignment of debt, the lawfulness of the forbearance, the signed admissions. She does not make me a hero, she does not make them villains, she makes a ladder of the truth and hands it to the judge. The judge leans forward, steepling his fingers. He says, "Ms. Harrow," to me, "what do you want today?" "I want my sister to have her wedding without prosecuting me as the banker of last resort, and I want the law to work." He nods once. He says, "Relief denied for today." He says to the box with opposing counsel in it, "I will not insert the court into prenuptial chaos. If there are damages alleged, issue proceedings in due course. For now, the contracts stand assigned. Ms. Harrow, do not use your position to humiliate. Counsel, do not use yours to escalate." He clicks something. Good luck. The screen goes gray. I sit back. My hands are shaking because adrenaline has to land somewhere. At 12:01, a member of staff rushes in and whispers to Rory, who blanches. "What?" I ask. He says, "The registrar forgot the rings." Of course. Of course the universe wants balance. I go to the car park and retrieve the ring box from the glove compartment of Tamsin's car because this is not the first time she has put precious things where petrol lives. At 12:45, I stand in the back of the ceremony room. The light is a cathedral made of air. Tamsin appears at the top of the aisle on her mother's arm, and for a second, every ledger I opened in the last 3 days wants to hand her a bouquet. Oliver looks at her like he is seeing white for the first time. My phone vibrates. A new email from Hugo at Whitford. Final bit of fun. Braithwaitepartners.co.uk attempted to purchase the debt from under you this morning. We told them they were a day late and 56 pence short. I look down to read it again. I do not look up immediately. When I do, I see Oliver's father standing at the side door with the paper in his hand and a face like a storm over a city. He is not moving towards me. He is moving towards the registrar. He is going to stop the wedding. I take one step into the aisle.
"You," I breathe, and the word dissolves as I lift my chin and step into the aisle. Oliver's father, Henry Braithwaite, the kind of name that always arrives in a bolder font, moves like an injunction wearing shoes. He has a folded document in his hand and a certainty that has been serving him since the Thatcher years. The registrar looks up from his notes, startled by the weather change entering from the side door. "Sir," the registrar starts, instinctively polite. I reach the center aisle before Henry does. "Mr. Braithwaite," I say, pitched for the room, not the man. "The court declined your injunction at 11 o'clock. There will be no interruption today." He stops a step short of me. His eyes flick over my navy dress as if looking for the regulation that allows it. "This registrar will hear me," he says, and places the folded sheet on the lectern as if it is a crown. I slide my own paper across the top of his. The judge's order, 2 paragraphs, concise as a scalpel. "Relief denied," I read, because sometimes you have to speak the words aloud so they attach to the air. "Contracts stand as signed. No interference." A murmur runs through the rows like a grease through wheat. The registrar scans the order, swallows, and then lifts his gaze to Henry with the solemnity of a man who once dealt with a runaway swan and knows how to handle drama with bureaucracy. "Sir," the registrar starts. Henry's jaw acquires angles. For a second, he looks at his son. Oliver's face is pale and handsome and a little boyish the way even very grown men can be when their father is a weather system. Tamsin stands at the head of the aisle on our mother's arm, her fingers tight around the bouquet, her eyes asking me a question she doesn't want to voice. Is this my fault? I give the smallest shake of my head. Not today. Henry's voice drops in pitch, meant only for me. You have made this personal. It is personal, I say, equally quiet. You took my name to buy your party. I took my name back. He leans in an inch, enough for me to smell his aftershave, something that wants to be crisp. You think you've won, he says. I think my sister is about to marry your son, I say, and step aside because I will not be the obstruction in her photograph. The registrar clears his throat. Music stirs, soft and disciplined. My mother squeezes Tamsin's hand and together they move. The aisle becomes time. I move to the back, pressing the judge's order into the pocket of my dress as if it were a hand warmer. The ceremony has a way of making everyone the best version of themselves for 20 minutes. The light is soft and benevolent. When the registrar reaches the bit about obstacles, I can feel a ripple of private jokes all over the room. I think I hear Etta's laugh 3 rows back. She slipped in, of course she did, because she knows how to stand between law and ruin and still make it to a friend's big moments. I exhale when the rings go on because the rings did not forget to arrive twice. Do you, Oliver, says the registrar, and Oliver says, I do, but he adds a look at Tamsin that is entirely his and which no one will ever legislate. When it is Tamsin's turn, she finds my eyes for a sliver of a second before saying, I do. And in that second, we are girls again at our grandmother's sink making boats out of orange peel. In that second, nothing is stolen. They sign, they kiss. The room stands and performs the ancient chorus of joy. I clap and do not cry because I promised myself I wouldn't cry in front of Henry Braithwaite. On the lawn, Prosecco happens. There is a way people smile after a ceremony that is different to other kinds of smiling. It is relieved and generous and a little daft. Rory watches the trays leave the kitchen like a shepherd. Miss Wren's shoulders have come down from around her ears. The string quartet plays Cheerful Weather. I take out my phone and open a new album I titled last night, Harrow Braithwaite, Recon. I photograph the room cards by the door, the seating plan I designed months ago when this was just a puzzle I liked solving, the bar tab setup with the event code, the electricity meter reading taped to the side of the outdoor box, the marquee hire label with its serial number, the timestamps on the florist's delivery slips. I am not gathering ammunition. I am gathering truth. Etta drifts to my side like a woman who has always known how to appear without startling horses. I saw the look, she says, as if we had been mid-conversation. With Henry, I say. He wanted to stop it, she says. He wanted an outcome that looked like discipline and felt like control. Judges can smell that at 50 paces. Thank you, I say, for everything. She shrugs one shoulder. You did the mad part, she says. Her gaze sweets the marquee. How are you? Like adrenaline put on a tress, I say, but okay. She tilts her head. Then go be a sister. I'll be nearby with the legal extinguisher if anything else catches fire. I become a sister. I bring Tamsin water between photos. I fix an escaping hairpin without a lecture. When she whispers, "Are we safe?" I say, "For today," and mean it. Oliver squeezes my hand and says thank you, and I accept it because maybe he means it and maybe he is practicing. Between the confetti and the call to dinner, I catch Rory at the edge of the marquee checking the power distribution board. The sky is behaving, but I have learned this week that weather is not the only thing that can pull down a tent.
Any word from the bank? He asks. They've provisionally credited the charge, I say. They'll contact you per procedure. Send them to me. I'm the lender. Let me be the wall. He nods, relieved. The band wants to test levels at 6. Make sure the generator fuel is full and the backup fuse box is where it says it is, I say. And he gives me a look that is 80% gratitude and 20%, how do you know these things? I read the manuals, I say. I'm a fun date. He laughs, tension skipping out of his shoulders. You might actually be. Don't let Miss Wren hear you, I say, and we smile in the way people do when they are underslept and undersung and somehow still capable of it. Dinner is a warm river. The speeches resist cruelty. Oliver's father keeps his short and correct because there is nothing he can say that will not sound like the click of a trap, and perhaps he senses that. My mother speaks briefly and beautifully, and then sits down and grips my hand under the table so hard I think she might leave fingerprints. I slip away between main and dessert to the pantry office. I open the Harrow Braithwaite Recon album and start a draft email to accounts@braithwaitepartners.co.uk, copying accounts@hawthornegrangeltd.co.uk. Subject: Reconciliation Package, Harrow Braithwaite Event. The body is a list, because lists make people who balance books feel held. 1. Signed admissions of liability, attached. 2. Copy of bank reversal notice, attached. 3. Vendor invoices with event code, attached. 4. Photo log, timestamps aligned to delivery and setup, attached. 5. Meter readings pre- and post-ceremony, attached. 6. Bar tab reconciliation method, described with caps and rules. 7. Note on forbearance and equity exchange at Hawthorne Grange, disclosed in general terms. I hesitate over the last line. No current obligations remain in the name of Miss Linnea Harrow. Then leave it in. If there is an audit, they will need words that aren't frightened of themselves. Before I can press send, a new email lands from h.braithwaite@braithwaitepartners.co.uk. No subject, just a single line. Do not contact my staff again. Cease and desist. I add his address to the CC and press send anyway. The email lifts and goes. I imagine it gliding across some internal desk and lodging under the paperweight of a woman named Moira, who makes 18 numbers fit in a cell. Back in the marquee, dessert arrives in ramekins. Tamsin looks incandescent and a little unreal. She squeezes my fingers under the table and mouths, later. And I nod. I am prepared for later, prepared to be angry kindly, to set out boundaries like cutlery. For now, I clap when Oliver's cousin attempts a toast that overreaches but contains heart. At 6, the band sound checks to an empty dance floor that soon won't be empty. I step outside. The air smells of hay and lavender. Beyond the ha-ha, the fields make their old arguments with the horizon. Miss Wren stands at the edge of the terrace, arms crossed, watching the first fairy lights accept the dusk. Cash flow, she says, without turning as I approach. I stand beside her. We'll make a plan Monday, a cash waterfall that respects both the roof and the humans. She huffs. You talk like a banker who wants to be a poet. I am a poet who had to learn to be a banker, I say. You knew it, she says, and smiles to herself. Your father would have liked you doing this. It hits me like a small, precise stone. He would have told me to keep my ledger clean. And to dance when you could, she says, and nudges me back toward the tent. The first dance is at 7:30. The lights are a kind that makes everyone mourn their own living rooms.
The band begins a song that was on the radio the summer we learned to drive and somehow still means beginning. They dance. We watch. For a minute, no one is thinking about ledgers. I feel the disruption before I see it, a change in the hum at the edge of the tent, a tremor in Rory's attention. Then the lights dip, not from romance, but from power. The band falters. A murmur rises like mist. The generator coughs and recovers. Rory is already moving. I follow, circling to the service entrance. Two men in black fleece jackets stand by the power distribution board with the entitlement of authority. The taller one carries a clipboard. The shorter one carries bolt cutters. Their van, white, no logos, except a tiny crown, idles in the gravel. Evening, says Bolt Cutters, which is a name I will call him before I can be bothered with his real one. He holds up papers that look official enough to scare anyone who has never seen official paper try to terrify in weddings. Rory's voice wavers. A wit for what? Execution of goods for unpaid supplier invoices, he says in a tone that knows the effect of syllables, under warrant from the High Court. I step in. Who's the judgment creditor? Wetford Leisure Holdings, he says with satisfaction creeping in, and certain named suppliers. Rory looks at me with alarm that is pure enough to power a small village. I take the papers and scan them under the security light. The claim number, the judgment date, the schedule of goods, the words wit of control glint like a dare. I say, these are invalid, and I put all calm I have into the sentence. Whitford's judgment is satisfied. Their charge was assigned and then satisfied. You are attempting to enforce a debt that has been extinguished. I angle the paper toward the light and tap the line with my nail. This wit relies on a charge that no longer exists. He lifts his chin. We enforce what the court seals, love. I hand him back the stack. And the court will unseal this one when they see Whitford's own memorandum of satisfaction registered at Company's House 3 days ago. You can call your office, they can call Whitford's solicitor, or you can escalate to the police when I dial them and tell them you are interfering with a licensed event based on a wit that doesn't bind. Bolt Cutter smiles like a man who has seen people fold on less. We can just take the Jenny and sort the arguing later. I say, you can try. And because I am tired of men trying to move through me, I step between him and the generator. But you will do it on camera and on the record. And then you will explain to a judge why you cut power to a wedding based on a wit tied to a satisfied judgment. He looks past me to Rory. Who's she? Rory says, voice steadying, lender and director, which makes it our goods, I add, not Whitford's. Bolt Cutter's grin shrinks, clipboard hesitates. He glances at the marquee, at the music rebuilding itself, at the people who will not be on his side if the light goes out. Call your office, I say gently. I'll wait. While they step aside to make the call, I text Etta, bailiffs at Power Board with wit citing Whitford. Wit dated yesterday. Whitford memo of satisfaction filed. On with police if needed. She replies instantly. Call 101 non-emergency, log it. Send me a photo of the wit and claim number. I'll email Whitford's memo of satisfaction and the assignment deed to their enforcement team. I photograph the document. I also photograph Bolt Cutters, who sticks out his tongue like a boy when he notices, which is a useful detail when someone later tries to act like stone. I email the images to Etta and Miss Wren. Clipboard returns from the shadows with a look that tries to be neutral and doesn't quite reach. Office says stand by, he says. Splendid, I say. While you stand by, you will not touch the distribution board. He tucks his hands under his armpits, which in some species is a show of restraint, and in others a preparation for aggression. Your attitude isn't helping, he says. My documentation is. Attitude is free. A shape moves beyond the hedgerow.
Henry Braithwaite emerges with the grace of someone who could have had other people do this, but wanted the pleasure himself. He looks from me to the bailiffs, and his smile arrives like a signature. "Evening, gentlemen," he says. "All in order?" "Pending," says Clipboard. Henry's eyes find mine. "You are an exhausting woman," he says softly. "And you are a predictable man. You lodged this wit yesterday because you realized you couldn't own the debt. You thought you'd interrupt the event and make me the villain. The court likes facts, Henry. This wit's attached to a ghost." Something moves behind his eyes. Annoyance, admiration, both flavors taste the same to me now. "You can't hold this house together with bright ideas and borrowed money. You'll tire." "I will, but I will tire after the first dance." I look at Clipboard. "Well?"
He glances down at his phone. It pings. He reads. His posture changes by half a degree. "Stand down," he says to bolt cutters, and the two words soak into the gravel like rain into grateful soil. "Confirmation?" I ask, because we do not walk away from men like this on goodwill. He shows me the screen. Hold. Memo of satisfaction filed. No action. "Thank you." I step aside because this part of the field does not belong to war. "I'd like copies of your paperwork for our file," I add, and Bolt Cutters snorts but hands me a scanned QR code that will let me download the lot later. Henry watches the exchange with a face like a closed gate. "He'll see," he says, which is the anthem of a certain kind of man. He turns toward the marquee. "Don't be late for your sister's dance," he adds, careless as a coin toss. It is the closest thing to kindness I've heard from him, which means nothing and everything. When I step back into the lights, the song is in its second verse, and joy has reclaimed the edge of people's mouths. Tamsin catches my eye, and I make a circle with my fingers. All clear. Her whole face loosens. Oliver presses his nose to her temple, and for a second, I forgive him a little for the years he spent practicing his father's silhouette. The band opens the floor, and the old aunties put down their handbags with bravery. I dance with my mother to a song she adored when she was 20 and wearing eyeliner like a plan. Miss Rand dances with her chef in a manner that makes staff look away sweetly. Rory, God bless him, allows himself a whole minute of public happiness. Later, outside by the smoker's hedge, I check my email. A reply from accounts@braithwaitepartners.co.uk has arrived. Short, brisk. Received. Thank you for the documentation. Please confirm whether any prepaid amounts in Miss Harrow's name were applied to vendor balances. We note bar cap terms. Kindly provide post-event meter reads and final reconciliation by 0900 Monday. There is a second line, and it is longer. Senior Finance requests a meeting with you next week to discuss irregularities arising from this event and associated accounting entries on internal accounts relating to Oliver Braithwaite. For a moment, my heart does a degenerate little joy and dread dance. The word irregularities is a key you can use in either direction. I forward the email to Etta with the subject, "Here we go." Then I go and be present because nothing can turn a good song to dust faster than a woman checking her phone by a hedge. At 10, the sky is completely on the side of romantics. The fairy lights do their gentler labor. The band grants the DJ an hour, and the DJ proves that competency is a love language. People remember how to be 19. Rory finds me with an expression like a silent alarm. He says, "There's someone at the back gate. Not guests, not staff." I follow him past the kitchen, past the bins that have been made respectable for the day, to the service road. 2 security men in cheap suits stand there with the dissatisfaction of people who wanted to be invited and weren't. "Evening," I say. "Can we help?" The taller one glances down at a clipboard as if checking my name on an imaginary list. "We're here to perform a property inspection on behalf of Braithwaite Capital." "Braithwaite Capital doesn't own this property," I say. "We've been instructed by the freeholder's agent," he says. "Change of management effective immediately. We need to access plant rooms and office spaces." Rory makes a strangled sound. Miss Wren arrives, breathless. Freeholders, agent? She repeats, in that tone people use when they think the words might change if they say them differently. The man holds out a letter on thick paper. It is on the letterhead of a firm I recognize, Tarn and Field, property solicitors who prefer their clients old and their carpets older. The letter states with a confidence that doesn't check whether the floor is still under its feet that Braithwaite Capital has acquired an interest in the freehold company that owns the ground on which Hawthorne Grange sits, and that as such, they intend to review covenant compliance and assume immediate oversight of facilities in the interest of safety. I feel the temperature of the air drop a notch. This is another front. Not the debt this time, but the dirt under the house. Who signed this? I ask, and read the name. It is not Henry's. It is a man who likes being near Henry. Miss Wren swallows. She says to me under her breath, "We don't lease from the freeholder directly. We hold the freehold in a sister company. My husband moved it years ago when the bank wanted something tidy to look at. We pay ourselves a peppercorn. It's a trust thing. I never worried about it because we are the freeholder, just differently." Her eyes widen as she arrives at a thought I don't want her to have. Unless he bought into the sister company through someone you never watch because they only ever send you Christmas cards. I finish. She nods, horrified. "My brother-in-law," she whispers. "He always said he wanted to help with the building." I turn back to the men. "You will not be entering anywhere tonight," I say. "There is an event underway. Health and safety is covered. Any change of control will be verified through Company's House and Land Registry on Monday. If you have a court order to enter, you can show it to me and to the police when they arrive. Otherwise, you will leave this gate and you will not return without making an appointment through the office." The taller man sets his jaw. "We're just trying to keep everyone safe." "By cutting into plant rooms during a live event?" I ask, letting the ridicule be the only sharp thing in my voice. "Go home." They linger a second too long, because intimidation enjoys a tale. Then they go. Miss Wren presses her fingers to her forehead. "I can't do another fight tonight," she whispers. "You won't," I say. "We'll check the filings first thing. If Henry bought a handful of shares in your freehold sister company through a cousin 2 steps removed, we'll respond. You still run this house." She nods, shaky faith fluttering back to roost. "I'll make you a key for the strong room," she says, half delirious from relief. "You can keep our papers where your papers live." "Tomorrow," I say. "Tonight, we keep the paper on the table and the music on." We do. The party finds itself again. People forget the hitches because hitches look like stories when the light is right. Tamsin dances with me like we are learning to be sisters again. Our mother laughs, her whole face involved. At midnight, the last song ends. The DJ smiles like a man who has landed a plane with no fuel left. People shout for one more. We allow one more, because control is not always discipline. Sometimes it's compassion with a stopwatch. Then the music stops. The night unbuttons itself. The marquee exhales. Staff begin their ballet of dismantling joy. In the pantry office, I open the email thread to accounts@braithwaitepartners.co.uk and attach the post-event meter readings, bar totals, and a sequence of photographs that show the venue in every important state today. Set, signed, danced, done. The last photo is of the power distribution board at 12:14 a.m., humming, untouched. I CC Henry.Braithwaite Act Show and add a single line for him, "For your records, all charges reconciled to the liable parties, as signed." I hover over send, then I send. At 12:19 a.m., my phone buzzes with a text from a number I don't recognize. "You don't know what you've started." No name, no punctuation. The kind of message men send when they're frightened that a woman knows where the levers are. I turn off the pantry light and step into the corridor. From outside comes the sound of a truck reversing. A sharp blue-white glare sweeps across the end wall. Not the florist, not the band. Rory runs in, breathless. "Linnea," he says,
They've come back. Different van. High court enforcement again. They're walking toward the dance floor with cutters. Someone just cut the power. The marquee goes dark. A collective gasp arises. Somewhere in the darkness, a child starts to cry. The fairy lights flicker, then die. Through the tinted doorway, I can just make out Henry Braithwaite's silhouette, still as a statue, watching. I take a breath that finds the bottom of my spine. Get the torches, I tell Rory. Find Miss Wren, call Etta. Keep everyone calm. Then I run toward the dark where the music should be, where the levers are, where a hand is closing around the main switch, and I say, "Stop!"
Stop. The word leaves my mouth with more authority than I knew I owned. It cuts through the hush like a small, clean blade. The man with his hand on the main switch pauses, not because he's obedient, but because something in the tone promises paperwork that will outlive him. Rory's torch beam finds the panel. Miss Wren is at my shoulder, breath tight, brave anyway. Somewhere behind us, the crowd recalibrates. Murmur into laughter, into that particular British optimism that insists this is all part of the story we'll dine out on later. The band, bless them, start an acoustic riff without power because trained musicians are a civil defense force. The man by the switch has the close-cropped hair of someone who wants to be a problem professionally. He doesn't withdraw his hand, he just looks past me at the marquee and then at Henry Braithwaite's dark outline at the edge of the lawn. The outline does not move. It is approval outsourced. "High court enforcement," the man says. "We have a writ." He angles his chin at his partner, who lifts a plastic wallet with a sheaf of stamped papers. "Hold that steady," I say, and I read. Different claimant this time. Not Whitford. Cedar and Tarn Electrical, a supplier with a name like a country lane and invoices that grew teeth. The writ is fresh, today's date, a claim number that hasn't even weathered a phone call yet. The schedule of goods is vague. All plant or equipment located on the premises of Hawthorne Grange, including but not limited to power generation apparatus. It's a net thrown fast. Etta is already on the line before I finish the second paragraph because I texted her the moment Rory said again. Speakerphone, volume high. "Names," she says without hello. "Marquee Power Board," I whisper. "Writ by Cedar and Tarn, claim number..." I read the digits. She repeats them like beadwork. "To the gentleman by the switch," Etta says, and her voice on speaker carries the weight of 5,000 guided conversations with judges. "This is counsel to Hawthorne Grange and to the secured lender. You are attempting to execute against an event mid-performance. You will step away from that panel. If you don't, I will call the police and we will bring emergency relief. Your writ is against the venue's company. The generator is rented under a retention of title clause, and any seizure tonight will be unlawful interference with licensed activity." The man narrows his eyes at the phone like he could push back through sound waves. "We have authority," Etta replies. "You have a piece of paper, which will look very small in the dark when the police torch it with bureaucracy. We'll wait. We're not leaving. Stand back 2 paces and you can wait until the cake cuts." A sound like relief and disbelief ripples from behind us. Miss Wren exhales so I can hear it. Rory flicks the panel cover closed, gently, like he is tucking in a child. "Rory," I murmur, "is the bypass line still live?" He nods once. "Then route the band and fairy lights through that. Leave the kitchen on main. If they try the board again, we lose dancing music, not fire suppression." He darts away, already drawing up the invisible map in his head. Henry steps forward at pace, into enough light to make his expression legible. "Henry, Linnea, go home." "I am home," I say, and even I am surprised by the truth of it. "You should be careful with paper tonight, Henry. It might drift and settle somewhere you didn't plan." He tilts his head, amused in the way of men who read amusement as composure. "Be careful yourself. You don't know how many rooms there are in a house like mine. More than in this one, but none of yours have this view." I step away from him because there are people who need me, and because the band has found a groove that sounds like defiance. Etta's voice hums in my ear. "Police are en route.
I've emailed Cedar and Tarn's instruction firm with the retention clause from the generator hire and the existing forbearance. This is nuisance. You know it. They know it. Hold steady. Thank you, I say. Text me when you can breathe again. I pocket the phone and go be part of the light. In the marquee, someone has generated cheerfulness. The DJ returns with a battery speaker for the Gap. The band keeps strumming. Tamsin catches my eye with a question. I make a flat palm. Hold. She nods because tonight she believes me when I say we're fine. The police arrive 10 minutes later, 2 in high-vis jackets who look like teachers at a Freshers' Week. They speak to the enforcement pair by the service entrance, then to me, then to Miss Wren, then back to the pair. Paper weighs less under their torches. The men stand down, for now. They will be back because history has trained them to return to women who say no until one of them says fine. But not tonight. Tonight they pocket their plastic wallets and take their bitten pride back to the van. When the fairy lights surge with full power again, there's a small cheer. I let it wash through me. The dance floor remembers itself. I dance because Etta would scold me if I didn't, because my mother is laughing and wants joy with witnesses, because Miss Wren insists, and it turns out that body memory includes the ability to do a halfway decent Charleston when backed by the relief of 200 people who didn't want to have to tell the story of the dark wedding. At cake cutting, Tamsin pulls me into the circle with a hand that is still my sister's. "You are impossible," she whispers. "I learn from the best," I say, and she laughs because she can't argue with her own mirror. We make it to midnight without another attempt from anyone in a fleece or a suit. At 5 past, I walk through the dark garden and call the generator hire company to warn them. Any late-night inquiries about removing equipment are to be refused. At 10 past, I stand beside the power board and photograph the meter, the settings, the position of the switches. Before anyone can accuse us of something we didn't do, we record what we did. At 20 past, the text arrives. Anonymous, ugly in its cowardice. "You don't know what you've started." I log it in a note, attach a screenshot. I forward it to Etta, who sends back 3 words. "Keep everything. Always." We bring the night down with efficiency that looks like grace. Staff strip tables, the band load vans, the kitchen breathes a clean end-of-service air. I sit at the pantry desk and package the post-event reconciliation. Meter readings, bar totals, the photo log that shows an arc from beginning to end, like a heart tracing its own beat. I title the folder HB Recon Final and send it to accounts@braithwaitepartners.co.uk with the line I added for Henry because sometimes you have to put the truth where it can't slide off. All charges reconciled to the liable parties, as signed. By the time I get back to London, light is happening in the east. I place my boots under the chair by the door because I'm too tired to be civilized. I sleep for 3 hours and wake to my phone ringing a sound that means people with power want narrative control. "Ms. Harlow," says a voice that belongs to someone who writes policies and wears sensible jewelry. "Moira Grant, Senior Finance at Braithwaite Partners. Thank you for your documentation. Our Audit and Risk Committee would like to meet with you this afternoon at 3. Can you attend?" "Yes," I say, because this is the corridor in which the next part of the story runs. "Send me the location."
She does. Braithwaite Partners' offices in St. James's. Rooms that smell of wool and endowed confidence. I sent a text to Etta, who replies, "Go. Take nothing you wouldn't want read out loud in a tribunal. Take everything you can stand to have praised for being tidy." At 9, Miss Wren texts a photo of the kitchen staff eating leftover cake at a stainless steel counter. "We did it," she writes. Also, the roof didn't leak. I send back a line of celebratory emojis because sometimes words don't cover the specific dignity of a dry roof. At 10, I log into Company's House and look up Hawthorne Grange Freehold Ltd. I'm expecting at least 1 new filing. I find 2. An SH01, new share allotment yesterday, 20 shares, allotted to Braithwaite Capital Holdings LLP at nominal value. An AP01, the appointment of a new director. Giles Braithwaite. Brother-in-law, Christmas card signature, love from Giles and Livy. Of course. I exhale through my teeth, the polite version of swearing. It's a minority stake on paper, but a director seat is a lever in a small company. Edda's name lights up my screen before I can dial. I saw the filings. Preemption rights were waived by previous articles. We can reverse that at a general meeting if you can persuade Miss Wren and the other shareholder to adopt new articles by special resolution. But we need to move. I call Miss Wren. We hold an extraordinary general meeting, I say. Today, if we can. We adopt new articles with preemption rights restored and protective provisions that require lender consent for any asset transfer. We remove Giles if we have cause. Do we have cause? My cause is that he's a weasel, she says, and then catches herself. I'm sorry, legal cause? I say, dilution by stealth is not cause, but conflict might be. Did he disclose his connection to Braithwaite Capital at his appointment? She thinks. Not in writing. I say, check the minutes. If he didn't, we have a handle. Either way, we can change the articles. You and I hold enough to pass a special resolution at Hawthorne Grange freehold if your late husband's trust votes in line. She is quiet for a moment, then sighs. I'll get the trustee on the phone. Come here at noon? I say, noon. Then I go to St. James's at 3. I spend the train ride to Morton drafting resolutions and an explanatory note that would make sense to someone tired and frightened at the same time. In the pantry office, Miss Wren and I sign papers like women who can, because today we can. The trustee appears on a screen and looks like an owl in a suit. He reads and nods and votes because it is right. We file the new articles electronically. Edda emails Tarnanfield a letter that says, any attempted entry pursuant to the letter of last night will be treated as trespass. The company's articles now require lender consent for any material change of use or access. Consider yourselves on notice. At 1, I stand in the hall of Hawthorne Grange and look up. The house breathes around me, old and kind and stubborn. I put my palm against the wall. We're not finished, I tell it. But we're better. On the train back, I review the HB Recon final email thread. Moira had replied at 2 a.m. Received. Thank you. Meeting 15 o'clock. There is a second internal note in the metadata that she probably didn't mean to include in the forward to me. Board, note irregular draws on OB's internal cost center, reviewing card usage pattern. It is not gloating to feel the relief that comes from seeing the machine whir toward the truth under its own power. Braithwaite Partners' reception is a steady and elegant caution. I give my name, and I'm taken up 2 flights to a room that glass and oak are in a long marriage. Moira Grant is as I imagined. Neat mind, neat suit, eyes that have seen nonsense, waste money, and decided to starve it. She says, "Thank you for coming, Miss Harrow," and indicates a chair. "This is Alan from Internal Audit. This is Ruth from Legal. We will record for minute purposes." "I will also record," I say, and place my phone on the table with its red light on. There is a small pleasure in mutual caution. Moira gets to it. "We have concerns about certain transactions surrounding the event for Mr. O.B. and Miss Thompson Harrow. In particular, the attempted purchase of debt from Whitford Leisure, the initiation of enforcement action via third parties, and communications sent from account accounts requesting documentation for costs in the name of you. We would like your account." "I'll give you the sequence," I say. And I do. The venue visit 6 months ago, the lifting of my card, the deposit, the fraudulent email address, the balance charged, the assignment from Whitford to Briar Ledger, the forbearance, the admissions of liability, the attempts to enforce via writs that reference debts already satisfied or vulnerable to challenge, the freehold maneuver, the night itself. I keep it spare. I do not tell you about my father or the beeswax smell. I keep to the lines that will stand when lit behind. Ruth from Legal leans forward. "Do you allege that Mr. Braithwaite authorized the use of your identity?" I allege that someone used my identity and that someone in close proximity to Mr. Braithwaite attempted to retroactively launder that use through company channels when accounting requested paperwork. I do not know who instructed the enforcement agents, but I know whose house those agents smiled at. Moira's mouth tightens in a way that says she appreciates both my temperance and my accuracy. "We have logs," she says. "We know which internal addresses requested what and when.
We also have payment authorizations on a shadow cost center Mr. Braithwaite appears to have used for miscellaneous hospitality. She doesn't look pleased by the phrase. We will take statements. We will take your documentation today. I slide the memory stick across the table. Everything I've sent you and more, including high-resolution images from last night, timestamped. I pause. I have no desire to hurt my sister. I do have a desire to stop anyone using me as a sleight of hand. Moira nods. Understood. She considers me for a second. May I ask a personal question? You may ask, why didn't you let the venue collapse the event? It would have been the quickest way to make your point. Because my point is not that I can stop a thing, it's that I can set it right without burning the people I love. And because Hawthorne Grange didn't deserve to die for my sister's mistake. Something like respect moves behind her neat gaze. Noted. Alan from Internal Audit clears his throat. We will likely request a formal statement in due course. You have it in writing already, I say. But yes. The meeting ends with a practiced courtesy that signals both gravity and velocity. Outside, St. James has the decency to smell of rain. I stand under an old plane tree and breathe until the last of my adrenaline notices the time. On the pavement, my phone rings. Thompson. Can we talk? She asks. We are, I say, but I find a bench in a square where people eat salads on steps and pretend they like it. I think I knew, she says. Not the scope, not the audacity, but I knew I was walking very close to a cliff and hoping I could dance on the edge. You used my card, I say, because in all this precision, there must still be a simple line. She says, I did, and the admission lands between us with the exact weight of what it is. I told myself you were helping because you always help, and because you're better at fixing the world afterwards, and because, God, I hate it, because Oliver said it would be taken care of, and I believed him, because believing him is easier than confronting the version of him that sounds like his father. And now, she says, now he's suspended. Voice small, Moira called him in. He keeps saying it's a misunderstanding. He keeps using words like optics, like they are spells. She makes a sound that is not quite a laugh. We haven't even opened our cards yet. The hotel room smells like lilies and panic.
I'm sorry, I say, and I am, because love is not a court, even when it should be. What do I do? She asks. And for a second, she is 7 and sticky with ice lolly and asking me if it's too late to say she didn't mean to break the vase. You pay, I say. You keep paying. Not just the plan with the venue. The consequence. You tell the truth, even when it makes you look like a person you don't like yet. And you decide if you married a man who can learn. Silence that is not empty. Then, I'm sorry, she says. And I close my eyes because I needed her to say it more than I let myself think. I know, I say. I accept your apology. I don't absolve you. That seems fair. A breath. If we break, will you sit with me? Yes, I say. Because the thing about boundaries is they hold up better when you build a chair on your side. We hang up because there's only so much truth 2 sisters can carry while standing up in public. I spend the next week inside the machinery of rescue. Briar Ledger wires second tranche payments to Hawthorne Grange's suppliers. The roofers come on a Tuesday morning and remove a rotten section of timber that would have embarrassed us in November. I interview 3 operations managers and choose a woman named Pippa, who ran a coastal hotel through 2 winters and a burst pipe with nothing but a spreadsheet and stubbornness. We rewrite the energy contract. We sign an agreement with a local school for midweek proms at a rate that makes sense. We draft a letter to past clients offering anniversary packages with discounted rooms at the end down the lane. We creak, then move. On Thursday, the police call. They have traced the anonymous text to a pay-as-you-go purchased from a corner shop in Pimlico at 1812 on Saturday by a man in a navy suit with a pocket square. The CCTV still is useless for faces, but not useless for a particular lift of shoulder. Etta files it away because patterns love company. On Friday, Company's House publishes our new articles for Hawthorne Grange freehold. Tarn and Field sends an offended letter on heavy paper. Etta replies with a copy of the special resolution and an invitation, quote, "If your client believes he has rights here, he is free to test them in court. Until then, the locks remain as they are." End quote. On Saturday, I stand in the back of the barn when a different couple say words that are older than our mess and stronger than our paperwork. The roof holds. The lights hold. My spine holds. On Monday at 08:58, an email arrives from Moira Grant. Subject: Outcome: Preliminary. I open it with both hope and armor on. Miss Harrow, thank you for your cooperation. Following our review of the documentation you provided and our internal logs, the board has placed Mr. Oliver Braithwaite on administrative leave pending a full investigation. We have found clear evidence that internal accounts were used to attempt to conceal payments associated with the event and to procure documents relating to charges in your name. We are referring certain matters to our external auditors and, if necessary, to the appropriate authorities. We have settled the outstanding invoices with Hawthorne Grange relating to the wedding. Please find attached a remittance advice for your records. We apologize for any distress caused. We note the professionalism of your correspondence. Should you require anything further, please contact me directly. Signed, M. Grant, Senior Finance. I read it twice. Relief doesn't arrive like fireworks. It arrives like a room taking a deep breath. At 0912, a second email lands from Henry. Subject: You. Linnea, you think you've won. You've simply moved the pieces in a small game. I will remember this. H. I stare at it until it looks stupid, then drag it into a folder titled Keep and forget it, which is a particular kink of power. At noon, I meet Miss Wren in the pantry office. She brings a bottle of something that loosens shoulders but not decisions. We stand over the ledger and look at a number that is no longer bleeding. You did it, she says. I say, we did it. Now we do it again and again. She opens a drawer and takes out a small set of keys on a brass ring. The strong room, and the side door, and the cupboard full of unbreakable vases. These are yours now, in all the ways that mean something. I take them. They are heavier than I expect and exactly as heavy as they should be. I'll keep the day running. I'll keep the night honest. She laughs with her whole face. Put that on a plaque. We place a call to the roofing company to schedule phase 2. We review the cash waterfall I drew on the back of a menu and turned into a plan. We book 3 midweek civil ceremonies in October. We do a grown person's version of hope. In the evening, I go to my flat and sit at the window. London moves in its ordinary choreography below. I open the Harrow Braithwaite Recon album and choose 2 photos to print. The first is the exact moment the lights came back on after the attempted cut, the band's faces upturned in delight, the fairy lights catching in the glasses like a galaxy. Tamsin's shoulders dropping in relief. The second is the meter reading at 0014, the panel humming, my hand steady. I send both to a printer with a studio under the railway. I order 2 large matte prints and ask them to courier one to accounts@braithwaitepartners.com. Attention, Moira Grant. With a short note. For the audit wall, this is what truth looks like when you turn the lights back on. The other I'll frame in the pantry office. The courier picks up at 10. By noon the next day, Moira emails a photo of the print taped above a whiteboard in a room where people have been drawing boxes and arrows for years. We put it where we would see it, she writes. Thank you. Tamsin comes to see me on Wednesday, hair pulled back, makeup simple. She looks like herself, not like a version she curates. She stands in my kitchen and holds a mug like an apology. He's gone to stay with his parents, she says. I told him he wasn't a card I could play at accounts meetings. He said he didn't know what I meant, then he knew exactly. She breathes.
I'm going to keep paying, Linny. I'm going to keep paying because I want to live in a house I didn't steal. I nod. I'll help you make the plan. You'll make the payments. She bites her lip. Can I help at the venue? I know you have staff. I know you don't need me. But I need to do something that isn't a mirror. Come Sunday. We're hosting a charity tea. You can set tables and endure old ladies who know everything and are wrong. She smiles. Real. I can do that.
After she leaves, I stand in the doorway and feel the shape of our new thing. It is less pretty than forgiveness and more workable. It will build itself if we keep laying bricks. A week later, Slate calls. I read your monthly, he says. You're learning hospitality faster than hospitality is learning you. I hired Pippa, I say. That helps, he says. I'm increasing your bridge if needed through winter at the same rate. Don't take it unless you must. Also, Etta has asked me to remind you that villains often send flowers when they're regrouping. Avoid the lilies, I say. He chuckles. Finish well. I end the call and walk the beach-lined drive with Pippa. She points out a gutter that will misbehave. I point out a fence post that is pretending it isn't rotten. We make a list. We make another. On a Thursday in late September, the sky is blue like a rumor and a couple from Bristol kiss under it like disbelief. Ms. Wren watches from the terrace, her hands stuffed into a cardigan pocket, the picture of a woman who fought and then remembered she could also sit down. Rory teaches a new server the art of folding napkins into shapes that look expensive. Pippa adds a line to the spreadsheet and makes a small, victorious noise. My phone pings. A message from Moira. Final outcome, bored. My stomach does its careful work. Ms. Harrow, following our full investigation, the board has terminated Mr. Oliver Braithwaite's employment for gross misconduct. We are pursuing recovery of certain sums through civil process. We appreciate your cooperation and your restraint. If you require statements for your insurance or for any legal process, they are enclosed. Please accept our thanks. M. Grant. I sit on the low wall by the rosebed and let the news fold itself into the place where the worst of the knots were. I am not happy for my sister's pain. I am relieved for the halt of a certain kind of story. Tamsin texts an hour later. It's done, she writes. I am not okay, but I am in motion. I have an interview at a gallery in Marylebone. The tea tables were a hit. The old lady said my napkins were optimistic. Optimistic napkins, I type back. That's a career. That night, I stay late in the pantry office after the staff have gone. The house at night is a companion. I print the second photo, the meter reading, and hang it in a cheap black frame above the desk. Under it, I tape the note I scribbled the week of the wedding that became the plan. Keep the roof, keep the staff, keep the light on. My phone buzzes on the desk. A new email from Henry.Braithwaite at Subject, Accounting. He has forwarded my couriered photograph, the one Moira pinned on their wall. Under it, he has written, Congratulations on learning to play with adults. I close the email. I open a new email to accounts@braithwaitepartners.co.uk and CC board@braithwaitepartners.co.uk. I attach 3 images, the dance floor when the lights returned, the signed admissions of liability with their tidy ink, and the meter at 00,14. I add a single line. Final reconciliation attached. For those who prefer numbers to myths, here are both. I press send, because this is who I have become, a woman who curates her own evidence and trusts people who keep ledgers to recognize a rare thing when they see it. Someone paying attention. When I step outside, the night of the kind that makes you consider the possibility of benevolence. The beach leaves move like a language you could learn if you stayed still long enough. The house stands, a little less tired. I am not naive. There will be more letters. There will be more polite men with fleeces. There will be rain that finds a join we didn't seal. But we have instruments, and we know where the switches are.
We have learned to stand still and say stop when a hand reaches for the wrong lever. We have also learned when to dance. The album for that night sits on the pantry shelf now, labeled in my tidy hand, Harrow, Braithwaite, Truth, and Light. When a supplier asks for reassurance or a bride asks if storms ruin marquees, I take it down and show them the 2 photos. This one, I say, touching the image where the fairy lights came back to life, is the moment after the worst bit ends and no one notices that something very boring saved them. A clause, a plan, a woman with a phone. Then I point to the meter. This one is what I send to accounting. Because that's what I did. When they tried to reduce me to a line item on a man's balance sheet, I bought the books. When they tried to darken the room, I sent the light with timestamps. When my sister borrowed my name without asking, I gave it back to myself in ink. And when I walk through the hall at dusk, I touch the wall and say out loud, maybe to the house, maybe to the part of me that was frightened I was making myself too large. We keep the roof, we keep the staff, we keep the light on. I lock the side door with the brass key Ms. Wren gave me. I hang the spare in the cupboard of unbreakable vases. I turn off the pantry lamp. The house settles around me. A ledger closed for the day. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.